All right, guys, today's video is Understanding Deer Browse number 2. If you have not seen my first video on Understanding Deer Browse, this is just a quick snapshot of what it's about, but I recommend if you want to get all the good details, go watch it. But basically, it's basically deer are telegraphing to you what they want, and it also shows you where the better parts of your soil is. So that's all I'm going to say, but just keep that in mind as you're watching this video. And we want to understand on this particular video, what is the cause and effect of deer browse in your plot. I had one of my subscribers bring this up in his comments, talking about over browsing. Over browsing definitely can cause problems, and there is research to back this up, other than the parasite video that I done about lip high food plots. But this does tie very, very well into that video. So let's get into what the study's about. Again, it will be in the description if you want to see it. But what happens is somebody had done a study on the structure of the plants and the stresses that go along with browse pressure. So plants in this food plot, real quickly, the vast majority of these plants are in extremely good shape. This is by far the best start I've ever had in this part of the food plot. It is literally smoking everything that I have ever done in here. I'm so glad I broke this hard soil up. So now that the nutrient level can increase, that means the plant growth rates can increase, thus helping to fight off over browsing. Sorry about that. All right, so what happens in the study is that they watched plants that were browsed at 70%, 50%, or actually 30% of the plant removed, 50% of the plant removed, and 90% of the plant removed. My food plot on average in here is about 4 to 4.5 inches deep, and there's a spot or two now that's approaching about 6. So that's good to see that I've at least avoided the short height problem. But now the deer have been in here basically religiously now. They're in here every day. So thank goodness for my other plot helping to relieve some of this pressure. But we have to talk about how this is going to affect the plant. So if a plant like this one, which has not been touched, so let's say we remove 30% of this cereal rye here, is it going to affect the plant? Well, the answer is no. So you have a nice window of roughly 30%, or maybe just a hair more. It does not affect the growth rates of your plants. Now, what's important here is the study did research on the root mass. Under the soil at 30%, there is no change in the root structure. The plant will keep growing rapidly, and it will replace that 30% that has been taken away from it by deer. Now, what happens if a plant is browsed even harder than 30% and you get into the threshold? I'm going to take this rock out of here. Hey, soil improvements. There we go. Soil improvements. I couldn't stand staring at that rock any longer. So what happens if a plant reaches the 50% threshold? You know, that's a good one. That's probably 50% gone. That's probably even more than 50 there. So what happens to the plant at 50%? The root structure in those plants begins to change. Only 50% of your roots continued to grow, and the other roots did not. So what does that lead to? It slows down nutrition rates. So you start having a drop off of nutrition in your plants. Even though it's there in your soil, if your roots are not expanding to grab it, it's just going to sit there. So the plant is not efficient anymore, or nowhere near as efficient. You've cut the rate by half. So the plant has to replace at least 20% of its original 50% haircut to get to that 30 mark in order for the roots to begin to grow fully again. So what happens if you have even harder pressure, and let's say 90% of that plant is removed? What kind of effect does it have at 90? Well, at 90, you have complete root structure stoppage. The roots no longer grow, none of them. So what happens to the plant? It's almost basically in a dormant state, in my opinion, and it won't start growing under the soil. I'm talking about the roots. It will not start growing until 60% of that comes back. So you're already slowing the plant down, you're reducing your nutrition rates, and that means you have less food for the deer, lower quality food for the deer, and if it remains that way for a long period of time, that means you're causing another dip in that recovery. See how that ties in? So now that you're starting to understand more about deer browse and why it's important to watch this, your food plots can play tricks on you that you may not even realize. You may come in here and say, man, they eat this down. Look at that. There's nothing hardly left. You get all excited because you have high activity, but at the same time, you need to understand, because of that activity, you just reduced your food plot's ability to keep producing high quality food, or as high quality. It just kind of drops down a notch or two. So by making sure your plots are not over browsed, you're keeping elevated nutrition levels, which cuts down on recovery time. See how I'm kind of switching back and forth between browse and recovery? This is a wonderful bridge between the two and understanding what's happening to your plot. So overall, this particular plot has handled the pressure extremely well. Now this spot here, it's really not receiving browse. The deer are pretty much skipping this because they want to get to these really good spots on that back half, right over here, right through here. This whole back corner is loaded with deer sign. There's a lot of deer poop in this back end over here. So they're really focusing on this, but it's not strong enough at this point to slow my plants down. Now there's some small percentages in here when I zoomed in here for you up close to where it's more than 50%. So that plant is going to slow down, but the one beside of it was in good shape, so it will cover for that one. But the higher that percentage of scalping becomes, the worse your food plot will perform. So as of right now, the percentage is so low that it's not making a difference at this point. So I am in good shape as far as the rate of growth in here. The amount of browse pressure is still a very adequate balance, and I'm not getting into trouble by keeping this food plot scalped down. So just remember, you got a 30% window to where it doesn't change anything for your plants. 50% window, you lose half your root growth. 90% is a 100% shutdown of root growth. So always study your food plots if you're serious about this. If they're cutting it down, you need to make some changes. So one thing that I could do in order to help with that 90% problem is maybe put a temporary fence around this and give it 10 to 14 days and give it time to regenerate a lot of that lost growth. You may have to come in here and fertilize again if you have poor soil to jump start it, so that way the nutrients will hit the roots right off the bat, because they're not going to grow when it's scalped down so low. That way your plot can recover, and as long as you have multiple plots, it's not going to hurt the deer to be kept out of one of them. As long as you can balance it out, and if the plot takes off and it grows 6-7 inches deep, take the fence down, let them have at it again. And if you have a high deer density problem, obviously you may not have enough food. He has to come in here and make some noise for me. But I hope this helps you. If you like this content, hit that like and subscribe button and that notification bell, so that way you will get the latest videos I post. And I hope you all have a great day, and this helps you understand what is going on in your food plots and what deer are doing to your plots. Have a good one.